All right, we on. Okay, let me see. Somebody here. Let's see what somebody pop up. See what we can do. If we can do what we do, damn fool. We got action. That's what I'm talking about, man. You know what I'm saying? Motherfuckers don't understand that. Well, people don't understand that. Nowadays, they think you just supposed to get stuff handed to you, and that, you know what I'm saying, ain't how it works. I gotta go out there and work for it. Ain't nobody giving me nothing, you know what I mean? But I'm about to get it, hey, one way or another. So now I done converted all my hustle, you know what I'm saying, to all legit. I go to work, I come home. When I got time, here I am on YouTube, spreading my hustle. Man, small time hustle trying to make it. You know how it is. What's up with you, doggy dog? What you got up? Man, Friday night. Friday night. No, the hustle don't stop, man. You know what I'm saying? You got bills, you know what I'm saying? You got hungry people, you know what I'm saying? I got a grandbaby. I want to spoil. I want to make sure my grandbaby has everything. Just got off. Yeah, I feel you know what I'm saying? I got off at 4:30. So I had a little time to rest my neck, kick on back, you know what I mean? I almost thought about dipping out on y'all. But nah, you know what I'm saying? I got the grandbabies at the house. My grandson. Oh, December. That's what's up, man. That's what's up. Hey, that's a blessing. Nothing but a blessing. Nah, I surprised, you know what I'm saying, wasn't expecting the grandbaby today. And you know what I'm saying, here it is, you know what I'm saying, I get a surprise, daughter shows up, and grandbaby, you know what I'm saying, needs somebody to make her smile. That's my job. But you know what I'm saying, like I was saying, man, life is good, man, but you gotta do the work. Ain't nobody gonna do it for you. You know what I mean? If you want something, you gotta make it happen. And only reason I know is because this is what I had to do. For longest, you know what I'm saying, I was trying to, you know what I'm saying, get somebody else to do my work for me. That's the good life. Yeah. Well, no, you know what I'm saying? Now I'm living the good life. I'm blessed by the best. I still gotta go to work. I still gotta, you know what I'm saying, hustle and you know what I'm saying, try and find ways to make ends meet because it's getting harder and harder. But you know what I'm saying? The hustle ain't never gonna stop. You know what I mean? I'm man, look, my goal, you know what I'm saying, I'm trying to, you know what I'm saying, get a piece of dirt, you know what I mean, so me and my family, you know what I'm saying, can have our own little piece of dirt. I don't need much, I'm ready to go sit down somewhere, you know what I'm saying, give me some garden tools. I grow my own food. I'm man, everything got poison in it. Man, everything. I'm scared of everything they got out here. Yeah, hey, only you can do it. You know what I mean? But that's the thing. You know what I'm saying? What do you want? What do you want? It's people. Oh, I want a Lamborghini. I want a mansion on the beach, and I want a helicopter and a yacht and a plane. Man, look, I don't want none of that. I want all my family healthy, and I want to, you know what I'm saying, be able to live, you know what I'm saying, a good life. That's it, because I've lived a bad life. I've had that one already. You know what I mean? I already been there. Let's do something different. But that's it. That's where I'm at, and life keeps getting better. But I'm working at it. You know what I mean? I'm constantly working at it. I'm constantly trying to better myself. At the same time, I seen a post by one of my young homies. He was saying that he wants to be a better him for his son. I want to be a better me for my grandbaby. You know what I mean? I got a granddaughter. I want to be the best me I can be, you know. And that's it. You know what I mean? That means me going to work and working hard and, you know what I'm saying, trying to move up, And I got it, man. Look, I sit here and bullshit, you know what I mean? But I got the best job. You know what I mean? The company that I work for, these people, man, I ain't never worked for a company like this. They've been there for me when it was crunch time. When no one else was, you know what I mean, I got out of prison and 4 days after I got out of prison, I got a job through a temp agency and I was working for this company. And I worked for this company for 2 days. After 2 days, that company gave me an application and said, fill this out. You work for us now. You know what I mean? Because my mentality was I was inside working for pennies. You gonna pay me dollars? Psh, man, look, I'm working for dollars. You know what I mean? I paroled. This was 2006. So I paroled after doing 12 years, 7 months straight. You know what I mean? No family, nothing left, got out with no place to go and got into a drug program because I needed a place to get on my feet. You know what I mean? That's the way I saw it. And it was a trip because I got in a place called the Heartland House on Streamview. And a lot of people, say, I think I've been to a gang of parties on Streamview. We used to have Streamview cracking. You know what I mean? One time, I had to leave the car there and exit the other way. I'm serious, Streamview was a wild place in the 90s. Damn fool, But nah, I got into that drug program and it was like the first day or my second day there, and one of the guys told the guy, he was like, hey man, I respect Joey. Joey's here because he wants to change. And then the counselor, he was in the group and he's like, nah, Joey's here because Joey needs a place to stay. And I'm like, oh shit, he knows. Damn. Yeah. Man, yeah, about them working for pennies, man. But so I was in the Heartland House and I stayed in that program for a whole year. I went through the whole program, went through the steps, did the whole thing. I had a job now. And now the job, immediately after 2 days, they gave me a $2 raise. After that, 90 days, they gave me another $1 raise. Then every certification, every, time I learned something, they would pay me to go to training. And then they'd have catered meals and everything. And I do the training and I got paid for the whole day. And then, I got a certification now. And now I got a raise because I got this certification. Man, the company, this is the best company I ever worked for, and there's been times when I've been in situations where I didn't know how to deal with, put it like that. I was released from prison after 12 years, 7 months straight. This was all level 3 and level 4, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what I was doing. I knew I didn't want to go back to the cage. So if you want something different, then that means you got to do something different. That's action. You got to make that shit happen. Ain't nobody going to make it happen. And I think every man needs to go through this. How long you been at your job? Well, see, that's the thing. My company, like I said, I started in 2006. But then I went back to the pen for 5 years. And now they put my lowrider up for 5 years while I was incarcerated. When I came home, put me right back to work. After 6 months, one of the bosses was like, hey, man, you ever going to go get your car? And I'm like, man, I ain't got no truck. At the time, I'm living in the sober living place, trying to get back on my feet, trying, rebuild a foundation to build this life off of. And so I got into the company, like I said, best company I ever worked for, HP Communications. And HP Communications saved Joey's life. People don't understand that, they've been there. They've, there was a boss who was helping me work through stuff because he would see me and see me, you know what I'm saying, and call me in and ask me about my personal life, and I didn't understand, because I'm like, man, why you all up in my business? He's like, man, you're part of this team, you're part of this family, and I'm like, what? You know what I mean? My family didn't want me. My family, kicked me out when I was 13. So I wasn't wanted. I didn't, I didn't feel that. I wasn't used to that. I wasn't accustomed to that. Anybody that's trying to get close to me wants something from me. You know what I mean? And that's the way it was. That's the way life was for me. So that's all I had experienced. And now, the big dog, he understood a lot of the situations. And I remember one time it was like my first anniversary, and they have you get a review. So I was having my review, and I was like, man, I'm just thankful you guys took a chance on me. And he's like, man, look, HP is about everybody here is on a second chance. And he told me, he said, look, I'm on my sixth second chance right now. All jokes aside, he was serious. You know what I mean? He had issues too, and that's life. But this company understands, and they help you. But in return, they expect you to work hard. You know what I mean? And that's the thing. You know what I'm saying? That's not too much for me to give. Hey, it's companies out here that will help you. I went to Tyson Food Inc. Hey man, look, whatever works. You know what I mean? I do fiber, so I'm in this fiber optics company, and I started out because I wanted, okay, fiber. This is the future. I want to get into this. So I've been working on learning as I go, and they've gotten me certified. They've gotten me training. I think I'm an asset. At one point I was still at the point where I didn't realize my worth. I had, a little low esteem because, I thought, at one point, there was a situation where my boss had messed up real bad. And then the boss told him, if you guys don't get your shit together, and the boss, he came, shit rolls downhill. So the boss tells him that. So he comes, he tells me that. And at the time, I'm like, man, I lose this job. I'm going back to the cage. I'm not going back to the cage. So I stepped my game up. I took on more responsibility. I did more work. I did more. I took on more to, because at the time I thought that if I lost that job, I would go back to prison. But nah, I don't feel that way now. You know what I'm saying? That was then. You know what I'm saying? But now if I lose this job, I'm gonna go get a better job. I'm gonna start my own business or company, or you know what I mean? Man, look, you know what I'm saying? My self-worth has risen because I am confident in my abilities to take care of what I need to take care of. You let me know what I need to do, you know what I'm saying? You show me something once or twice and I'm gonna pick it up and run with it. I'm not slow, special, or stupid. At the same time, I still have issues. I still, you know what I'm saying, I work on myself. I personally have been diagnosed PTSD, all this, from years of incarceration. You know how it is. uh, but you know what I'm saying, after dealing with all that, now you come out here, you got to deal with all this. And all this is way more. You drop me off, you know what I'm saying, for a fight, you know what I'm saying, I can, you know what I'm saying, I'm good. But you want me to deal with some emotions and some kids, and you know what I'm saying, hold up. This is starting to be too much, And like me, I have a problem with my temper, At the same time, I don't do well. I don't do well with people like stepping on my toes. Little things, that are like basically one stepping on my toes. If you step on my toes, say excuse me, because I'm taking it as a challenge, because from my mentality, from the prison mentality of, what I'm saying, where I spent most of my life, if you step on my toes, you're challenging me. So if you challenge, you know what I'm saying, I will step up to, I don't want no problems. But you know what I'm saying, these are issues that go on in here, and a lot of people don't even know because this isn't the way people do things out here. But where I came from, that's how we do things. And if you step on, you know what I'm saying, if you cross that line, and there's a lot of lines, that if you cross that line, you can get touched. And that's the thing. I hope I never had to touch nobody. I hope I never had to touch nobody. Because you know what I'm saying, I'm trying to put them away. Look, here they are. Man, look. Peace. I'm serious. But look, I'm gonna share with all of y'all. Everybody gets one piece, and I'm gonna keep the other one. All right, this one's mine. Y'all get this one. All right, don't share that with nobody. Ah, Sean, man, I ain't seen you in 40 moons, man. Good to see you, brother. What it do? What it do? Man, living grandpa Joey. Nah, you know what I'm saying? Life is good, man. You know what I'm saying? It's hard, but life is good. Got the grandbaby in the house. I'm looking forward to getting my hour in, and I'm gonna run in and play with the baby. That's the best part of my day. You know what I mean? Because all I gotta do is make her smile. That's my job. I know it's been a while. Yeah, I know it ain't all you. You know what I'm saying? I've been, man. You know what I mean? It's been a lot going on, but you know what I'm saying, things are settling down, life is good, you know what I'm saying? I'm still here. Still here. Figure, you know what I'm saying, the man upstairs kept me here for a reason. Man. Darren, salute 253. Up high. Did the LA 40 Crip have your back like the San Diego? I can say no. But yeah, some of them, not all of them. You know what I'm saying? Some of them. You know what I'm saying? I met some, some people just, don't rock with Dago. That's just the way it is. But it's a lot of 40s, you know what I'm saying? That, you know what I'm saying, real ones, OG, big, you know what I'm saying, yeah, you know what I'm saying, I remember when I first went to the pen, you know what I'm saying, you go to a reception. So Donovan had a reception, and I went to reception there, and that's the yard where it's level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, because this is where you first go so that they figure out where you need to be sent. Do you need to go to death row, or do you need to go to fire camp? Everybody here is all together until they figure that out. So that's the most dangerous place is reception. Anybody that knows prison will tell you. So anyway, yeah, you know what I'm saying? It was crazy because in reception, me being white and being a Crip, it was crazy off the top. And it just kept going. But yeah, when I first went to, I left, I went to Jamestown. I was level 1. So they sent me to a place where I was supposed to get training to go to fire camp, which was Jamestown, which was, that was the farthest I ever been away from home in my life, at that time. So we was on the bus. We got on the bus and left the prison, left San Diego. It was still dark. It was still dark. It was like 5, 6 in the morning before the sun came up. And we left out the prison and we headed north. And they drove all day. And we got there and it was after chow time. So we ended up with a sack lunch. And I wasn't happy because I was hungry. But anyway, so when I got there, it was a dude from Neighborhood 40s. And he, you know what I'm saying, heard it was a white boy from Neighborhood 40s. So he's like, hey, where you from? I said, I'm from Neighborhood. He said, I'm from Neighborhood. I said, I'm from 40s. He said, I'm from 40s. I said, I'm from 41 block. He said, what? He said, I'm from, you know what I'm saying, I think he was, you know what I'm saying, from the Ave, 40s Ave. And I'm like, I'm from 41st Street. You know what I mean? I'm a YCO. And he's like, you know what I'm saying, what? I don't, you know what I'm saying? I'm from San Diego. He's like, oh, I'm from LA. You know, so I didn't, you know what I'm saying? We was like, what the, you know what I mean? It was a trip. Yeah. Life, that's what it is. Going on. Hey, that's the thing. As long as it keeps going, we're good. When it stops, that's the problem. You know what I mean? I don't want to be there when it stops. That's why I've decided I'm indestructible. I'm just decided I'm gonna stop testing it. I've done all the tests. That's the thing. When I drove the quad off the side of a mountain, broke my back in two places, arm, nose, toe, got up, climbed up the mountain, got life flighted to the hospital, walked out the hospital that day. Oh, I was on some Percocets. But, you know what I'm saying, all that, I came back, you know what I'm saying, come back broke, two vertebrae broke in my back. Came back 100%, you know what I'm saying, working 90-pound jackhammer, dig all day, run up and down hills, can't stop, won't stop, That's when I realized I was indestructible. But that's when I told myself I'm going to stop testing it because the tests hurt. That shit hurts. Man, look, when I broke my back, I was laid up for a while, but, everything healed up. And, you know what I'm saying, let me know somebody was watching out, and I'm thankful. Still here, up high. I live in Los Angeles. What beach in San Diego is like Venice Beach out there with all different races? Go down to Mission. Go down to the roller coaster. Go from there, walk down to the end. Go walk south from the roller coaster, and you go down to South Mission. Back in the day, South Mission was was the spot. You know what I mean? That's where everybody, but it's so many spots, but Mission, you got the boardwalk. It's all kinds of people. It's not like Venice. Venice is it's a little more going on. San Diego's a little more laid back. But we got the roller coaster, the arcades, the rides, the games, the wave house. They got a pool there. They got, they got clubs right on the beach. Me and the wife went and caught Barrington Livy at the beach. Just on, it was like a Thursday, I think. But literally, it was like, at a club right there on the beach. So if you're walking by or out there, we didn't even know, like, what? Man, sitting there getting our gig on. Oh, what up, Key? Love it. Much respect. Reginald Lewis, appreciate you for tapping in, Key. Appreciate you for tapping in, man. Appreciate you, man. Can't stop, won't stop. You already know, Nah, but life, life keeps, keeps blessing me. I don't know. I just get up every morning and thankful, that I woke up. Because I know somebody didn't, at work, can't watch too long. Man, hey, I know how it is. I appreciate you for tapping in, man. Get that bread, go get that. Come back with that. We can split that. Nah, man, stay safe, whatever you're doing. That's the main thing, man, I be working, and it's like, figure, we be getting a little bit more. But I think we getting the short end of the stick. Whole point, I'm trying to spread my hustle and move into YouTube. But I'm gonna try and do more. I'm gonna keep doing this, because so far, it's a little something in my pocket. It ain't much. The most I'd have made in 1 month was $60. But I'm a small time hustler trying to make it. I'm gonna keep putting in the work, I'm gonna keep putting in the time. I appreciate, my people for tapping in, everybody, whenever you got time, and if you got more time, go back and check some of my old videos out. I got a whole bunch of stuff out there, And I got one I just did. I just did one about I took some family and friends fishing out of Choice Lake. Ended up catching a perch and a turtle. But go check it out. This little video got a little song. Did you meet any Brazilians, Belizeans in prison? Los Angeles Fody's crib. Yeah, it was a couple of them, man. I can't remember all of them name, you know what I'm saying? But you know what I'm saying, there was a lot of people from Belize from Fody's. I think it was Dark Side. But yeah, you know what I'm saying, I had, I had Sellies that was from LA Fody's. I had, you know what I'm saying, it was, you know what I'm saying, you know how it is. Inside, you know what I'm saying, birds of a feather flock together. So, you know what I mean, the Keyways was, you know what I'm saying, I'm active. So, you know what I'm saying, I'm a participant. And you know what I'm saying, you gonna notice me, you know what I mean? Cause I stand out in the crowd just a little bit. But that's the thing, a lot of people didn't know what to think. When you first look at me, it's like, what the hell? I'll never tell. Appreciate the respect up high. Appreciate the respect, man. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, I ain't nobody, you know what I mean? I'm just trying to, you know what I'm saying, live life. You know what I mean? And this is the longest your boy been out since I was 9 years old, man. It's sad because I'm 54, but you know what I'm saying, I'm working on 9 years, and this Christmas it'll be 9 years. And that's the longest I've been out since I was 9 years old. That was my first offense. So, we're stepping into new territory. Nah, I don't think so, Key. That ain't whack. Yeah, we old now. You know what I'm saying? That's the thing. I'm an old man. I don't want no problems. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, I ain't too old. I'm still here, and I still, you know what I'm saying? I still got something beating in this chest. I still got a marble or a screw up here. You know what I mean? It might be loose, but I still got it. And that's the thing, I'm gonna just keep pushing forward, because what they gonna do? Man, look, life keeps getting better. Only time it doesn't is when you quit or give up. And what you gonna do? What's crazy is Ice Cube got a new song. What was it? Man, we can't win, we can't tie, and we can't get out the game. That's a cold saying right there. And it's kind of true. It's looking like, you know what I mean? We can't win, we can't tie, and we can't get out the game. So what we gonna do? Keep pushing. How many years? Altogether, I did 20. I did 3 on my first term. That was full with half. I got out for 7 months and ended up going back. I went back and I did 12 years and 7 months on 9 with 80. And then I got out and then I stayed out for 5 years and then I went back and I did 5 years. And now I've been out 9. Can't stop, won't stop. You already know. He put out a new album. Yeah, hey, it's cracking. It's cracking. I'm a Cube fan, and Cube, look, I don't like a lot of rappers that just talking shit and ain't saying nothing. If you ain't got no message, if you ain't got no story, if you ain't got, a purpose, all you want to talk about is what you got half the time you're lying. You know what I'm saying? Then you want to brag about this and that. You know what I mean? That don't mean nothing to me because I was the guy coming for your shit. I was the chicken hawk hunting for a chicken. I was the, you know what I'm saying, the grimy motherfucker in the hood, hungry, trying to take whatever somebody else had. And if I see you, you know what I'm saying, dripping. Now this back in the day, we didn't have people wasn't doing the diamonds, you know what I'm saying? But motherfuckers had the big gold, the trunk jewelry, the fat chains and all that. Man, look, I'm taking it. What you gonna do? Bink. And that's the way it was. Ask somebody. This wasn't a game. When we was out there in the streets, it wasn't, and then if you fought back, it got worse because then everybody else got in because I wasn't by myself. You know what I mean? And Ice Cube crazy on my yeah, he doing his thing, but I heard, you know what I'm saying, that a lot of people, you know what I'm saying, they doing them tours because that's where the money's at. You ain't getting money from selling albums like that, like they used to. Because everything is streamed and what was that thing where they was Napster. Napster was killing all the royalties for all the musicians, and you know what I'm saying, and now, you know what I'm saying, the tours is where the money is at. Cube's touring right now, so Cube getting his bread. At the same time, Cube got the big three cracking. You know what I mean? Don't get it twisted. That's some good shit. I like seeing, you know what I'm saying, prosperity. What's crazy is before Kobe passed, I heard Kobe was trying to start a basketball league in China. What? I don't know. I'm not sure if it's true or not, but that's what I heard. I also heard that maybe Nike killed him because he was going to start a shoe company and they didn't want him cutting in on their money. I've been in the rabbit holes. I can't help it. Every now and then, man, look, I see a rabbit hole, I just dive in head first. I don't look. I don't, you know what I'm saying? I'll dig my way out. And that don't even sound right. How are you gonna dig your way out? You don't dig up. So yeah. But no, everybody, you know what I'm saying, it's been a good week. I had some good things going on, and I know, you know what I'm saying, there's more to come. I am looking forward to doing some of the stuff I got planned. It's right now, you know what I'm saying, it's almost time. I gotta take care, you know what I'm saying, a birthday coming up in the family. Yeah. So, you know what I'm saying, we gotta do something. But yeah, you know what I'm saying, I might let y'all see what's cracking. No, that's not Lil PK. You did hear that, right? But yeah. No, like I say, you know what I'm saying, your boy, you know what I'm saying, it's all about action. If you sit around, you will miss the bus. You will miss the bus and motherfuckers will pass you by. How do I know? I got passed by. I was sitting in a cage. Yeah, I chose that. I don't blame that on nobody. I don't, you know what I'm saying, ask nobody, you know what I'm saying, for sympathy. Please feel sorry for me. Fuck that. You know what I mean? I made that bed. Guess what? I had to sleep in that bed. That's how I learn. That's how I learn. You learn from making mistakes. Everybody wants to coddle and baby everybody. Now I understand it's your loved one, it's your family, you know what I'm saying, whoever it is. If you're constantly babying that person, he's not learning the lessons that he needs, he or she, they're not learning the lessons that they need. You have to, you know what I'm saying, be hard on them. And I was hard on mine. You know what I'm saying, they'll tell you. I don't have to. You know what I'm saying? Look, I'm trying to prepare you for what's coming. The world is a messed up place. It's some sick people out here. And it's not all happy fun time. So, you got to be careful. And I want mine to be ready and prepared for, you know what I'm saying, whatever, because, I'm only here, you know what I'm saying, until, you know what I'm saying, Pops decides to call me home. But you know what I'm saying, you have to be ready to deal with, you know what I'm saying, until then, you know what I'm saying, until as long as I'm here, I'm gonna be here, you know what I'm saying, as the watchdog over my family. And if anybody, you know what I'm saying, then they gonna have to deal with me. And that's, you know what I'm saying, we're not looking forward to that. Let's just say that. Uh but no, you know what I'm saying, it's so much been going on, man. Gotta get some focus. You gotta stay ready so you don't have to get ready. Man, hey, we learned that. We learned that the hard way, because if you wasn't ready, you could lose your life. We was in situations where a lot of people don't know. Damn fool, you know what I'm saying? Me and him, we did too much time together. We was together in Corcoran and then again in Donovan years later. And I'm not, you know what I'm saying, I'm not bragging, not proud of it, but thankful and blessed, that we survived because a lot of people didn't weren't able to walk out those gates. Because that's what they tell you, there's no warning shots, and you never know when, you know, a stray bullet, an angry officer, or I done ran into some foul officers. I done ran into, you know, but yeah, I done ran into some good and some bad, and there's more bad than good. Because personally, if you're just doing your job, then you're a good cop. You know what I'm saying? Okay, I can respect that. But if you're doing more than your job, if you're trying to make my life hard, because that's the thing, when I was in prison, this is where I live. You just come here to work. So if you don't make my life hard, I won't make your job hard. You know what I mean? You don't take it as a threat. I'm not threatening. You know what I'm saying? I had to clarify. I am not threatening. I'm just saying, you know what I mean? Don't mess with me, and I ain't gonna do nothing to you. Yeah, I know. I was there for a couple of them. Corcoran was like Corcoran was Corcoran was a foul place. There was some dirty cops, and you know what I'm saying. They had the fighting thing going on, the gladiator bullshit, and it was foul because I know of stories about people that walked in and got set up to get put into a fight, and just because they won the fight, the cop lost the bet, killed him because he just was mad that he lost the bet. The man lost his life because you lost the bet. Nah, it was a lot of foul shit. Yeah, war zone was one thing you call it. But like I said, I took the worst beating I ever took in my life. I was at the hands of the correctional officers in Corcoran when I came there for a shoot program from Chuckawalla. Oh yeah, you know what I'm saying? I wasn't the key attention getter because when I got there was a guy on the bus, and this dude had assaulted a female correctional officer at another prison, and now he got sent to the shoe program. So he was on the bus with us, and it was, you know what I'm saying, it was like 12 people. It was like 12 people, you know what I'm saying, that were going to the shoe on the bus that I was on. So they took us and, you know what I'm saying, pull us out separately. And then the cops took the dude away, and we didn't know why. Later on, we found out, oh, that dude, you know what I'm saying, he took off, he attacked a female correctional officer. Whoa, oh, ooh, yeah, that's bad. That's bad because they gonna do bad things to you. Because I never seen him again. I don't know what happened to him. I don't know whether he lived or died or what, but I know, you know what I'm saying, a while after that, I got in there and got to talking. talking shit to one of the correctional officers, and he started on me. He was cracking jokes because I was white and a crip, and calling me a wigger. He called me a wigger and a wannabe. And so you know what I'm saying, finally I was on his head. I was talking so bad about him. I had him mad. And then the dude, you know what I'm saying, I told him, take your badge and gun off and bring your bitch ass up in this cell. What? Man, look, the dude took his billy club and his mace and his belt off and left it in there. And, you know what I'm saying, took his badge and, you know what I'm saying, left it in there, emptied his pockets out, and came in my cell. I'm in the shoe, the door don't open unless you're cuffed up. And all of a sudden, this dude said, open the door. And the police opened the door. Now it's just me and him. Ain't nobody else here. The other cop is in the tower. It's just me and him. So he came up in my cell. Wasn't nothing else to talk about. You know what I mean? It's on. So he didn't come to fight. He tried grabbing me. He had a little size on me. He had, you know what I'm saying, he had a little muscle. But, you know what I'm saying, I know how to use this cell. And he didn't have cell training because I was making him touch everything up in there. I'm banking him off the locker, banking him off the bunk, banking him off the wall, back off the bunk. And to the point where, you know what I'm saying, as we're wrestling around, I got him in a chokehold and locked it in. And the dude tapped out. So now, you know what I'm saying, I'm young, you know what I'm saying, I didn't want to kill the police. I just wanted to whoop his ass. So he tapped out. That's, you know what I'm saying, he gave up. He submitted. I won. So he left about my cell. I'm thinking it's over, but people kicking on the doors, people, you know what I'm saying, people know what's going on. I thought it was over, right? It was, I'm huffing. I'm up in there to close my door, so I'm up in there. Yeah, but I'm pumped up, adrenaline going, you know what I'm saying? Everybody's yelling, kicking on doors, you know what I'm saying? It's loud as fuck. The police, you know what I'm saying, they went back in the office. The other officer then came, dudes in the tower, you know what I mean, so they come by, they checking on me, you know what I'm saying, and then, you know what I'm saying, just looking in my cell, they keep coming by, checking on me, and I don't know what's going on. So, you know what I'm saying, I was like, okay, it's over with. It's shift change, they leave. I'm thinking, okay, you know what I'm saying, right, you know what I mean? Here it is like 2, 3 in the morning. I'm in my cell sleep. All of a sudden, my cell door starts opening. What the hell? I try and get up, and it's too late. The motherfuckers come in without the lights on in full riot gear. They had helmets, they had the face shields, they had a shield, and they hit me with it and charged and ran me up against the wall and smashed me up against the back of the cell on the desk. And then, you know what I'm saying, once they grabbed a hold of me, they moved the shield, drugged me to the ground, and commenced up whooping my ass. That was the worst beating I've taken ever in my life. I ain't never been beat like that. And then afterwards, they left, but I was passed out. I wake up the next day in the cell on the floor. Got up, had to go to the bathroom. I'm pissing blood. I was beat. I'm talking about I had big purple and blue marks all over my body because they didn't hit me in my face or my head. But from my shoulders to my feet, they beat me like I stole something. Yeah, I'll be good. Yeah, I didn't want no more after that. But that's the way it was back then, and that was, you know what I'm saying, you just lucky you survived because they could just, you know what I'm saying, wipe you off the whole, you know what I'm saying, throw you in a bag, in a Ziploc bag, and you know what I'm saying, send you to your family. They don't need to explain what happened. You know what I mean? You just gone. And I saw people lose their lives for nothing. And it didn't even matter. The next day, shift change. Same cops here talking shit. The one that was in the tower yesterday, they killed a man. Now he's out here on the floor talking shit. Heard him tell somebody, yeah, you know what I'm saying? Keep talking shit. I'll do you like I did your homeboy Goody. They killed Goody. That was wrong. I saw that one. I witnessed that. That was foul. But that's the way they get down. That's, you know what I mean? Inmates' life ain't worth nothing. Especially back in the 90s in Corcoran, it ain't worth a plug nickel. But that's the thing, I survived, still here. You know, it was crazy because there was one dude I ran across, and this I'll never forget because this dude, he came and he showed me his paperwork, and he had got 7 to life. They sentenced him to 7 to life. Now he was older, and he was kind of older when, you know what I'm saying, I met him, and he was still going through this. He had already been down, he said, for 18 years, and he was sentenced to 7 to life. And, you know what I'm saying, what was sad was, you know what I'm saying, was he died in prison and never got out, and he was sentenced to 7 to life. Because back then, they give you a life sentence. It doesn't mean anything. You know what I'm saying? That number behind it doesn't mean anything because they can keep you there, keep you until that L, And there was a thing, it was one homie, you know what I'm saying? He had 2 life sentences, 2 consecutive life sentences, and then 42 years. So wait a minute, you gotta die 2 times and then come back and give them 42 more years? Man, what the hell kind of shit is that? The system is crazy. The system is designed to make money. It's a business. It's not about justice because it's just us and we're not the us. Well, that's the thing, I'm saying, I am. Just never learned to use it. Man. So yeah, I'm saying, I've been getting things going again, I try and get, I'm saying, one video out every week and do my live. I'm gonna try and do more when I have time. This weekend, I'm saying, I got a birthday celebration, grandbaby, and a couple things going on. So priorities, family is always gonna be first for me, and family coming first means I got to get my ass up at the crack of dawn and go to work. But no complaints because, I'm saying, my job ain't that bad. I'm outside, I have a good job. And, oh man, time to stretch out. I need to get these bones moving. Does anybody know anything about grounding? Anybody heard about this? Because the wife, the wife we've been looking into, I'm saying, so tomorrow we're going to go do some grounding. Nicole Farnham, nice to see you. I don't know who the hell that is, Miss Farnham. Yes. But grounding is something new for me. Not new for other people, but it's new for me. So what are you going to do? Oh, I'm going to take my shoes off and run around in the grass. What? Yes, so that's the plan. Me and the wife going to do some grounding, going to go get connected to Mother Earth, get a little bit of her love. Ain't that right, Nicole Farnham? Nah, oh, you haven't corrected that yet. Miss Patuka. Don't let it happen again. Look, hey, if anybody watching, you know what I'm saying, you see my wife commenting on here. I'm trying to get her to come in so she can tell you about the experience she's had dealing with this crazy individual. Who would be interested in that? Anybody? Anybody? You get a thumb up? Anybody want to see that? Give me a thumb up. And I'll get the wife out here to tell you all the embarrassing stories about me, you know. Nobody? Okay. Uh-huh. Okay, everybody. Where you at? It's Friday night. I know somebody got something going on. Hey, thank you. Somebody. All right. Anybody got any questions? Time is almost up. Got a grandbaby in the house and need me to make her smile. Anybody? Anybody going once? Anybody going twice? All right, everybody. Thanks for tapping in. I appreciate all you know what I'm saying, spending your time, you know what I'm saying, here with me and helping my channel. You know what I'm saying? I appreciate if you would hit the subscribe, hit the like, hit the share, and then go in and watch some of my other videos. Thank you.